Good afternoon, Year 4, and welcome to your science lesson. So before half term, we were learning all about digestion and the way that food moves through our bodies. So now that we've completed that flow of work, we're beginning a new flow on states of matter. And what we're going to be doing today and next week is to compare and group materials together as solids, liquids, or gases. So what is our LFPA? We are learning to sort materials into groups. The focus of this is to understand the difference between solids, liquids, and gases. The purpose then is to be able to recognise that some materials can change state. And the assessment, by the end of the lesson, we should be able to identify materials and how their state can change. So in this lesson, we're going to be learning about the 3 states of matter. This means that we will be looking at different materials to decide if they are a solid, a liquid, or a gas. To do this, though, we must first understand what these terms mean and how materials are classified. So we're going to watch the following video to learn a little bit more. Now remember, if you want to watch this video again afterwards, you can just simply rewind and watch again. So remember, the lesson is going at your own pace. You can pause it where you need to if you need to watch something again or you're not quite sure. So watch carefully and let's find out what the 3 states of matter are.
All right, guys, what have you got there? You've each got one of the 3 states of matter: solids, liquids, and gases. Solids, like this block of ice or this ball, retain their shape and volume. You can hold them and cut them into pieces, and they always take up the same amount of space. Liquids, like water or honey, can flow or be poured, and they're pretty tricky to hold. They change shape depending on the container, but always keep the same volume. Gases are crazy and don't keep their shape or volume. They spread out and can fit any container they're put in. Often you can't even see them. Gas is put into some drinks to make them fizzy, and when we drink them, that gas can sometimes try to escape from our bodies. Oh, delightful.
Okay, so we watched the video then about the states.
All right, guys, what have you got there?
I'm going to move on now.
You've each got one of the...
Let's move on to the next slide. So we know then that the 3 states of matter are solids, liquids, and gases. So our next task is to look at different items and decide which of these categories does this item belong to. Is it a solid? Is it a liquid? Or is it a gas? So if I move on to the next slide, you'll be able to see I've got some different items like sand, magnets, soup, clay, ice cubes, oxygen, cardboard, clouds. What I'd like you to do is have a look through the pictures and decide into which category you would place each item. So is it a solid, a liquid, or a gas? So pause the video while you're doing this, and then we'll go through some ideas afterwards. Now remember, some of them are going to be trickier to classify than others. Okay, so hopefully you've had a little bit of time to sit and look at the different items and decide whether they are a solid, a liquid, or a gas. So let's go through some of the answers together. So I've got the cards here as well for you to have a look at. So I've got steam. Where did you put steam? Gas? Perfect. I have got metal. Where did you put metal? Solid. Cardboard. Solid. Water. Water is a liquid, well done. Juice is also a liquid. Hot air, so what you find inside the hot air balloon. A solid, a liquid, or a gas? Gas, well done. Soup. Where would you put soup? Liquid. Sugar. Sugar is a solid. So even though you can pour sugar, when you've got lots of granules together, one granule on its own is still a solid granule. So even though it can be poured like liquid, it's not a liquid, it's a solid. Paper is a solid. Ice, where did you put ice? So we're looking here at the ice cubes, not the little puddle of melted ice. Where did you put that? Solid, well done. What about cola? Remember, it's what's inside the glass that we're focusing on. Was a liquid. What about clouds? Clouds are a gas. Milk. Liquid. Tea. So it's not the cup we're looking at, it's what's inside the cup. The tea is a liquid. Ice lolly is a solid. Clay is a solid. Wood is a solid. What about rain? Liquid. Plastic is a solid. What about fabric? Where did you put fabric? Also a solid, well done. Coffee is a liquid. Magnet is a solid. Wool is also a solid. A glass, so there's nothing inside the glass, it's empty, so the glass itself is a solid. A pebble, or pebbles, are solid. Oxygen, what we breathe, is a gas. Sand. Sand. It's quite a tricky one. Where did you put sand? So I put sand as a solid because I was thinking of one grain of sand is a solid piece, even though many grains of sand can be poured, a bit like sugar. Okay, the individual pieces of sand, the grains, are solid pieces. And what about rocks? Yeah, solid, that one was quite easy. Cream, where did you put cream? So cream's quite a tricky one, but I put cream as a liquid because cream can be poured. And even when you've got the cream that comes in the tin that you squirt, it's still a liquid. And lemonade, it's quite an easy one. That is a liquid. Okay, well done for sorting all those out. So were any of the items difficult to sort? Well, yeah, we thought that maybe the sand and sugar was quite difficult to sort, and perhaps the cream was quite difficult to sort. So we sorted out the sand, the sugar, and the cream. What about a sponge? Where would you have put a sponge? So a sponge is a solid. Even though you can squidge it and you can bend it and you can do all sorts with it, it's still a solid. And honey is a liquid because it can be poured. So what we need to know now then is what makes an item a solid, a liquid, or a gas? What are particles and how do they relate to the states of matter? So let's have a look at particles inside a solid, a liquid, and a gas. Watch carefully.
The particle model helps explain the properties of the things around us. Press start to begin. Particles come in 3 different states: solids, liquids, and gases. In a solid, particles are held tightly together by powerful forces called bonds. See how they sit in a regular pattern and just vibrate about a bit on the spot. Now, give this little solid a shake and see if you can break it apart. Nope. The bonds between particles are holding the whole thing together. Now, Press the plunger and see if you can squash it. You can't squash it either. That's because the particles are so close together, there's nowhere for them to go. The solid stays solid. Steel, bricks, and wood, surprise, surprise, are all solids. That makes them handy for building things you don't want to fall down, like houses. Now, what about liquids? Like solids, their bonds are tough enough to hold them together, but the particles are able to flow around each other. Give this container of liquid a spin. The particles flow, but the strong bonds mean the particles mostly stay together. You know what to do. Give it a plunge. It's impossible to compress it. That's because the particles are so close together. Water, milk, and petrol are liquids. Wow. Actually, it's very convenient that water comes in a liquid state because it can flow, ooze, gush, and squirt to where we need it. So, still with me? Our third and final particle state is gas. Gas particles have no bonds. They move about all over the place very, very fast. Give the big bag of gas a poke. Gas particles always move to fill their container. Solids and liquids can't be compressed. But what about gas? Try it. Because the particles are so far apart, it's possible to squash them together to compress the gas. Oxygen, nitrogen, and helium are all gases. Air is made up of many kinds of gas. It's invisible, but we can still contain it, like in an airbed. And because you can compress gas, your airbed gets that delicious, comfy, springy feeling. Except if the gas escapes. Time for a refresher. Solids are solid. They have a fixed shape. They can't flow and you can't squash them. Liquids, on the other hand, can flow and take the shape of their containers. But you still can't squash them. Gases flow and fill their containers too. But you can compress them into smaller spaces.
Okay, so we've looked at the different states of matter and we've looked at how gases, there we go, we've looked at how gases can change or how gases can spread out to fit their container, whereas solids, you can't move the solid, you can't make it small, you can't compress it because the particles, if you think of the particle as a little circle, they're all sat right next to each other really tightly and compact. Okay? So, let's just share the screen because it seems to have gone off. There we are. What I'd like you to do today then, the next part of the lesson, is to have a look at the diagram below and what do you notice is different about the structure of a solid, a liquid and a gas. So have a look at those particles, those little circles. Remember, how do they behave in each state of matter? What did the video say? So remember, we said that solids are very tightly compact. So they're all pushed together. They hold on really tightly to each other, which means you can't change the shape of the solid. Liquids then, they flow and move around each other, but they will fill any shape container, but they will hold their volume. So you'll never get any more or less. They'll always be the same amount, but it will fit into lots of different shaped containers. Whereas gases then, they move about and they will move to fit the space that they are in. So look at the diagram then. What do you notice is different? So just have a look at the solid. Look at how tightly compact all of those particles are. With the liquids, they're a bit further spread out, but they're still quite close. Whereas gases, you can see that they're very far spaced out and they're moving around constantly as well. So your task is to design a particle diagram poster similar to the one shown here. So you can see it's a solid, liquid and gas. We've got a real life example of each. So you've got solid, an example of a solid and a particle, but they're all mixed up. Liquid. Brick's not a liquid, is it? No, so I know that all of these are mixed up. What I'd like you to do is to design a poster and put them in the correct place. So where you've got solid, can you give me a real life example of a solid? And can you show me what the particles in a solid look like? Can you do the same for a liquid for me and also for a gas? So if you have a look at the poster shown here on the screen, we've got the heading solid, liquid and gas. We've got real life examples and we've got examples of how the particles behave in each state of matter, but they're all jumbled up. Can you draw a poster for me showing the state of matter, a real life example, and can you draw how the particles would look inside each of those examples, please? If you get stuck, you can revisit the part of the lesson where we classified objects into groups according to whether they were a solid, a liquid or a gas, or you can revisit either of the two videos we've just watched to get some more information. Okay, so that is your task for this week for science. Please return your work either via Google Classrooms or Dojo to your class teacher, and we will continue this flow next week. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. I'm looking forward to seeing all of your fabulous science posters. If you need a hand with anything or you're a bit stuck, just give me a shout and I'll be happy to help. Okay, thank you very much for listening. See you later. Bye.